Thank you,
Okay, we're good
Chana.
to
Thank
go.
you for everything. Okay, let's learn a little bit. So I put down here Vayeshev HANUKAH. I'm going to do something from the PARSHA, um, which these two items on the sheets, it will not be, it will not realize immediately what the connection has to do with our matzav, but I think we'll see a connection. Okay. Um, Vayikra Yaakov Simlo Tav. This is the number one on the sheet. Um, when they brought back the brothers, the Shvatim brought back the coat of many colors in blood. They thought he was dead. Yosef Hatzadik, Vayikra Yaakov Simlo Sav. He tore his garments. Vayasem Sak Imasnav. He started to mourn. Vayisabel al beno Yamim Rabim, and he mourned many days. Actually, he mourned 22 years for Yosef. And the question here that the Beis Halevi deals with, the Beis Halevi is actually the great grandfather of the great grandfather, actually, of Rav Soloveitchik of our generation, and he's asking a question here that Yehuda in this parsha had lost two sons and a wife, and yet it doesn't say by Yehuda that he mourned so much. So what was the tragedy of the death of Yosef? More so than the other tragedy in the parsha, Yehuda losing two sons and his wife. So let's see what he says concerning that. Now we picked up in the middle of this piece, it's a very long piece from the Beis Halevi. V'hinei, kol ribui hatzar shemitzta'er Yaakov Avinu al Yosef, the extraordinary pain, the suffering of Yaakov Avinu, the loss of the assumed loss of Yosef. L'chura eno muvan klal. I don't get it. Ayin b'medrash. If you look in the medrash, the matrona achas sha'ala al zeh, and here he goes. The Yehuda ksiv vayisnachem. He mourned. V'zeh aviyam shel kulam. The Yehuda was aviyam shel kulam ksiv bo v'yimaen lehisnachem. So he mourned. He finished mourning. Rak ikert saro haya al shechaser lo minyan yud beishvatim. So what's the tragedy here? The tragedy here is that he lost 12 shvatim. He thought he was going to have 12 shvatim. This was the last. This was from Rachel, right? The minyan zeh hu ikar hayesod miklalius uma hayisraelis. This is a fundamental, number 12. We'll see. He's going to go into it a little bit. The basis of Klal Yisrael is the 12 tribes. Lashon HaMedrash, Parshas Vayetze, and this is the language of the Medrash in Vayetze. Not till Yaakov Yud Beis Avonim, for example, he took 12 stones. Remember the dream? Not till he took 12 stones. Amar Gazar HaKadosh Baruch Hu Shehu Mamid Yud Beit Shvatim. The Kadosh Baruch Hu was gozer that there'll be 12 tribes based on the 12 stones that he took. Avram lo ha'midan, Yitzchak lo ha'midan. So Avram was not zocher to have the 12 tribes, which we were foretold we were going to be. Yitzchak did not. Yitzchak lo ha'midan. Ani im mitachot shnei masar avanim zu lezu. If I put these 12 stones together, so I know that I will be the one who is zoche, who is privileged to raise the 12 tribes, the Yud Beis Shvatim. V'zehu hayakol chukato v'yigiaso kol chayav. And this was his desire, his dream, his spiritual quest, kol chayav, all of his life, livnot Beit Yisrael, to build up Beis Yisrael. Va'avur zeh avad Bebeis Lavan Esrim Shana. Because of that, he was willing to work 20 years in the house of Lavan. V'kol hatzar shesaval me'esav hayarak avur sheyizka bebirchas Avraham. Excuse me, I just want to get a chumash and check something. Ve'eretz Yisrael. 1 minute, please. Okay, sorry. So this was his whole raison d'etre. V'kol tsar shesaval me'esav. All of the suffering that he had to endure from his brother Esav, hayarak avur, was only for sheyizkeh bebracha birchos Avraham ube'eretz Yisrael, that he would gain the brachas, he would receive the brachas of Avraham and Eretz Yisrael. Ubekarbonos, hakol tolui b'minyan hazeh. In karbonos, you also have the number 12 is involved in karbonos. It doesn't go through and explain how, but in karbonos there is a series of 12 also. V'achshav kisharosh nitraf Yosef, and now when he saw that Yosef was assumedly dead, v'haya savur shenechsar lo haminyan, so he doesn't have the minyan of 12. The whole basis is 12, right? Everything that he worked for is gone. So therefore 12 years, 22 years he suffered. 12 months of the year, 12 signs of the zodiac. The number 12 is a very significant yesodius number in the world, right? Amar Ki ered al b'nei Evel shola. I'm going to die in suffering and mourning all my life for my son. Ki b'zeh miskalkel kol ma'aseh she'asa b'chayav. Because this put an end to everything, every dream that Yosef had for building up Klal Yisrael. So now the Beis Halevi asks a simple question: Rak akati yiksha dama lama dema kol hatzar hazeh. Why did he do this? Why did he suffer? All right, he lost a son, nothing worse than losing a child, and he'll feel it for the rest of his life. But far omdu miletus. It's true that the imahos had finished giving birth; they could no longer have children. And they were not. It was not for them to have more children. Mikol mokom. Simple question: Haylo lisa isha acheret. Let him take another wife, right? This is not an uncommon feature by the Yavos and we see in the Chumash. Let him take another wife. Incidentally, we're all aware of the fact that according to the Torah, one can have more than one wife. The Cherem de Rabbeinu Gershom forbids it at this point in time. So, not that I'm complaining, but that's the situation. He could have taken another wife. Why didn't he take another wife? Ve'efshar od yulad ben acher tachat Yosef. He could have a 12th son and save the day. And back to the building of the 12 tribes based upon the 12 signs of the zodiac, the constellation of the cosmos, right? And etc. V'yitukan hakol kibatchila. And it can come back first full circle to the fullness of 12. Rak de lo haya yachol lasod kain. Why? Why couldn't he do it? Now, this is absolutely an astounding idea put forth by the Beis Halevi. Mipnei hashvua shehishbio Lavan. He swore to Lavan Harasha. He swore to Lavan, Im tikach nashim al benotai, that I will not take another wife other than your 2 daughters, right? Rachel and Leah. He promised this to Lavan. And because of that, v'kol zman shahaya achat mi'imahot kayemet lo hayachol lisa isha acheret. He couldn't. He would be breaking his promise to Lava. Shuv matzasi b'yalkut parshasu. I found another medrash. V'zeh l'shono, quote, Amar Yaakov hare nifritza bris hashvatim The whole covenant of the tribes has fallen apart. Kama Yagios Yagaiti Lahami Yud Shvatim, how hard I worked to make 12 beautiful, perfect tribes. Yud Beis Mazolos, 12 signs of the zodiac, the constellation. Yud Beis Shos Bayom, 12 hours in the day. Yud Beis Shos Balayla, 12 hours of the night. Yud Beis Chadoshim, 12 months of the year. Yud Beis Avonim, it all started with the 12 stones that I took. And 12 stones, Yud Beis Avonim LaEphod. The Choshen, the ephod had 12 stones. Hare Nifritza Bris Hashvatim, it fell apart. V'alo Ratzah Yaakov Lisa Isha, but he didn't want to take another wife, Ulaolid Ben, to have a child, Ipnei Shvuaso Shel Lavan, Im Tikach Nashim, because he promised, he swore to Avram Avinu, to Lavan, Harasha, that he's not going to take another wife. Now, could you think maybe he could go around it somehow? Hari Mevur Kechola Devarenu, Val Kolponim Hare Savot Tsar Harbe Shanim. And he suffered 22 years. Velo Ratza Lahatir Lo Ashvua. He didn't want, no, you can go to, we know there's a thing called Hataras Nedarim, we do it on Erev Rosh Hashanah, and if the women can't make it, the husband does it for the wife also. We're Matir Neder. And what's the easiest way to be Matir Neder? You find a petach, a psicha, an opening. The opening is, if I would have known that I would lose one of my sons, so maybe I can be out of the neder of not taking another wife. He had a way out. He did have a way out, right? V'lo rotza lahatira dashu. He didn't want to get out of it. Shahaya Yurei, he was fearful. Shahaya Chil Hashem L'Lavan. So be Achil Hashem to Lavan, right? Ukeshenit bonein al zeh unisayon gadol. So this was a tremendous test for him. Efshar gadol mi anisayon shel Akeda. This is even harder. We can surmise. The Beis HaLevi says this was a more challenging test for Yaakov Avinu than the Akeda, right? There it was not all over yet. Here, here's Shahaya Savur. He concluded Sha'avad Kol V'Tchutav Havtuchotav V'Chol Yegiotav, all of his bitoch, all of his promise, his hopes, his desire, needs to 22 years. V'lo ratza la'atir ha'neder, and he didn't want to be matir neder. Kol kach harbe avuzeh. V'zeu she'izkiru HaSanhedrin az zechuso shel Yaakov, etc. Goes on that he, whatever the Medrash says. This is an astounding thought. Now, why am I bringing this? Well, maybe I'll hold back. Let's do the second piece that I have here on the second page. And what does this have to do with the matzav? Okay, with what we're going through now. So number 2, this is a sefer called Divrei Yonah. This is written by a Talmud of Rav Weissmandel, Rav Michal Ber Weissmandel. That's all. I'm sure many of you have heard of him. He was one of the tzaddikim who survived the Shoah, and he built a Hasidic community in Mount Kisco, New York, of all places, and he was a very holy Jew. In fact, the famous story that he went to Eichmann and asked him to arrange for trains not to go to Auschwitz, to return from Auschwitz, to bring back to Germany Jews from Auschwitz. You can imagine the courage, and actually Eichmann reneged, but he sent one train. There was one train of Jews that came back from Auschwitz, and I happen to know children and grandchildren of people who were actually on that back to Hungary, who were on that train back to Hungary. So, I don't know what he saved, 1,000. There were 1,000 Jews that he saved out of 600,000. But can you imagine what he did, what he did? So he was a great person. And a student of his writes, brings something from him. Now, if you go, this is called number 3 on page 2. and skip the first paragraph. It's the second. We start in the second paragraph. Yesh la'orer al inyan ma shemezalzlin umot ha'olam be'inyan gezel akum v'tod akum. He was talking about a certain period in time in Europe when our host countries were very cruel to us and took everything from us. And European Jews devised ways to go around the government, right? To circumvent the government. Gezelakum, stealing from a non-Jew, right? Notwithstanding the fact that the Uraim, who was a Rishon, the Magen Avram actually brings this in the Shulchan Aruch. The tos akum mutter. This is a halacha. If a non-Jew makes a mistake, let's say you're at the cash register, and the non-Jewish cashier, we're not talking about a Jewish-owned store, right? You're in Chutz La'aretz, whatever, and the cashier makes a mistake, right? The mistake of an akum mutar. That the technically you don't have to give the money back, right? However, Amnam Kosef Sham, the Magen Avram writes, the Eino Nikra Lechem, this is not really yours. In fact, there's a commentary called the Ber Hativ, which is, or I think that it's no, it's not in the Ber Hativ. I don't have, I'm not going to open up a Shulchan Aruch to find it, but there's a commentary on the side which generally brings the sources of in the Gemara of where this is coming from in the Shulchan Aruch, and it's usually very short and terse. But here, this particular commentary goes to great length. He writes a whole thing that even though we have the basic technical thing that you could keep it if the goy makes a mistake, the non-Jew makes a mistake, it's a chilul Hashem. We should not do it. We should not do it. Never do it. Return it. That's what you have to do. You have to make a kiddush Hashem. So very strong, right? But remember, we're dealing with communities in Europe that were suffering terrible from the governments, and this was the only way they could survive, right? So they relied on this heter, this basic technical halacha. V'yesh l'ramez b'zeh inyan norah, ma sheshamati mi pam mehagon atzadik Rabbi Michal ber Zatzal. I want to tell you something I once heard from Rav Weissmandel. She'amar lahasbir, he wanted to explain ma she'ra'inu b'churban ha'achron, during the Holocaust, during Churban Europe, lo aleinu, she'af she'tchila shoresh ha'puranius ba'avonosenu harabim haya b'Deutschland, even though the beginning of this was in Germany. Germany was the source. Umisham hitpashet l'shar hamadinot, and then it spread to all of the other countries, all of the other nations. Amnam b'mitziut zachu achenu kol beit Yisrael b'Deutschland lihinatzel harbe yoser, but the Jews in Germany were privileged to get out more than any other Eastern European country. They were able to escape with their possessions. Kifi erech b'shar achenu b'nei Yisrael b'shar hamadinot, more so than the Jews in the other countries. German Jews were able to pull out much more of their property and money and possessions than the Jews in other countries. Everything was left. The non-Jews took it. Our hosts took all of our money, everything. They took everything. What's the reason? Listen to what he says. Hasibahu, the Hachenu b'nei Yisrael, Deutschland, the German Jews, the Yeki Jews, Hayalahem yoter yashrut, b'hamasiv imaton, imagoyim. The German Jews, as is well known, were much more ethical, very ethical, and very particular in their handling with their non-Jewish hosts in business. Their business ethics were pristine. B'meshech kol hashanim, mibli armumiyut. They never tried to deceive in business the non-Jewish hosts of their country. So their money was really more theirs than any other part of Europe. It didn't mix in with any of the non-Jewish money that was, let's say, stolen, right? Mishar Hamadinot, Shahaya Ha'aniyut, V'hadachkut Nora, those other countries, the poverty was beyond. The German Jews were not, the level of their existence was on a much higher level socially, but the other countries were tremendous poverty and the suffering that they had. Ulechein, Hutru la'atzman, the second column, Lefami, la'asot armumiyut b'dvarim shebemamon. So they relied on this heter. They relied on this poetic license to skirt around the law in this area. So therefore, not going to read it inside, but basically he says that's why the German Jews were saved more so and came out with more property and more money than the other Jews. He's not saying this is the reason why the others were punished, right? We don't give reasons for why the Holocaust happened. He is giving a suggested reason why the Germans came out better off than those who came out from the other countries, and he wants to say it's because of this extraordinary ethics of the German Jews. And going back to the Beis Halevi, right, that he would make a chil Hashem to love on. So what do I want to say with this? Before we go on to Chanukah? Look what's going on in the world today. The accusations, the lies that are being perpetrated against the Jews. The demand, calling it genocide, right? The fact, no one knows the facts. The anti-Semitism in the United States is beyond. If you would ask 9 out of 10 people where Palestine is, they wouldn't even know. What sea, what river, they wouldn't know. Somebody actually went out and spoke to people and they didn't know what they were talking about. So it's beyond. I mean, it's out of control. And yet we know that no other army in the history of warfare ever did what the Tzahal is doing, to drop leaflets from the sky that we're coming, get away, to send messages and all kinds of stories, how they got telephone numbers of Palestinians to get out of the north, go to the south, get out of here. And now that they divided up the area of Gaza, they divided up South Gaza now into 4. They put 4 areas where they can go and escape, and they'll tell them to go here when we're tracking here. There's no other nation in the world. There's no other army today or ever as moral and as ethical of the Jewish people. And you can say to yourself, why? Right? Believe me, the Americans bombed schools in Afghanistan, right? They killed thousands, tens of thousands of innocent civilians. It's war. It's a terrible tragedy, but it's war. You have to save yourself. And here we're dealing with people. They're not people. We know what we're dealing with. So certainly you would think that, but here we have to be so set. We are sensitive because that's what the Beis Halevi taught us. This comes from Yaakov Avinu, not to make a chilul Hashem, to love on the Rasha, and that's what we have. That's what we're doing right now. So we won't make a chilul Hashem for love on the Rasha, right? And every country, including our greatest friend, the United States, are already pushing back on pauses and ceasefires, and we're watching what you're doing. And it's others, the Rishoyim, our nations are saying that we're genocidal. It's all genocide. It's genocide in Palestine. Genocide in Palestine. I mean, it makes our blood boil, and really, it's not healthy to watch the news because we know the truth. We know what the truth is, and we have to, rather than watch the news, daven to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? That like emes, like oil. Speaking of Chanukah, rises to the top, and the truth will come out. So that's why I brought this here. Okay, let me conclude with a little bit of a discussion about Chanukah. I want to ask 8 questions, symbolically, and give an answer to these questions. I think the questions are interesting. Um, the first question is, the miracle of Hanukkah took place in the Beis Hamikdash. So why isn't the principal mitzvah of lighting the candles in shul, our mikdash ma'at? Why is the halacha it has to be done in the house? Why is it in the bayit? Why not in shul? And not only that, but we light a menorah in the shul, but it's only a minhag. It's not, we're not yotze the mitzvah of hadlakas neris. If you go to shul and I heard hadlakas neris, I was there. I don't have to light at home. No, you have to light at home. You have to light at home. This is only for the people, let's say, who used to live in the shul. Now we continue. There, people less fortunate would be put up in the shul. That was the custom of many communities. But also, it's a minhag, right? And Pirsume Nisa to say, just like Chabad. Chabad does extraordinary things. They light a menorah in the cities, all the countries. They go out, they light a menorah. That's a wonderful thing for Pirsume Nisa. And to bring people back to Yiddishkeit, right? But it's not the mitzvah of lighting the menorah. There's Pirsume Nisa. There's celebrating that. That's an important part of the nace of the Yom Tov. But the actual halacha of lighting has to be done at home. Okay, that's question number one. Question number two. Question number two is, it says in Al Hanisim, Bo vanecha livir beisecha, talking about Matisyahu, Yochanan Kohen Gadol. It says, Bo vanecha, your children came, your sons came, or Kohen Gadol, Ish, Banav, the Lashon of the, whatever the exact Lashon is in Al Hanisim. I'll ask you a question. There are two ways of describing Jewish people. We are banim to Hashem, we are His children, but we're also avadim, we're also servants. If you're speaking about the Kohanim in the Beis Hamikdash, if you were writing Al Hanisim, how would you write the words of Al Hanisim? Uvo banecha, uvo avadecha, right? These are your servants, the avadim. The Kohanim are doing the avodah in the Beis Hamikdash, right? So I actually thought I had all the questions in front of me, and I don't. One second. Oh, here it is. Okay. So that's question number two. Okay. Next question. The Rambam says in the halacha of lighting the Chanukah candle, he says that the candles have to be lit kol bayit ubayit. Why does he have to say kol bayit ubayit? What's the emphasis? Now, please bear in mind that the Rambam, any extra word in two Rishonim, in Rashi and the Rambam, it doesn't exist. There's no such thing as an extra word in a halacha in the Rambam. So if the Rambam is repeating it, kol bayit ubayit, every house and house has to light it, there has to be a reason for it, right? Also, the mitzvah of Ner Chanukah is, the next question is Ner Ishu Beito, we say. A candle for every man and his bayit. Right? And we do Mahadrim in a Mahadrim, we light 1, 2, 3 to 8, right? But the basic mitzvah is Ner Ish U Beso. Why is it said just the one for like a mezuzah? It's the mitzvahs for the house. What do you mean Ner Ish U Beso? What's the emphasis? Also, Hilchas, there's an interesting halacha that if one does not have enough money for both Shabbos candles or Chanukah candles, then you have to use the money for Shabbos candles, right? Because of Shalom Bayis, right? Shalom Bayis, that's why we light Shabbos candles, to have Shalom in the house, create an energy, we can see what we're doing and be besimcha, Shalom Bayis. This halacha is brought in Hilchas Chanukah, in the Rambam. Why isn't it brought in Hilchas Shabbos? Now, in the Shulchan Aruch, it's brought in two places, but in the Rambam, he only brings it in Hilchas Chanukah. Why is this a halacha of Chanukah? That if you have only money for Shabbos candles and Chanukah, you light Shabbos candles, right? Next question: the laws of Chanukah are not. There's a tractate, a Masechta in the Talmud called Menachos. In Menachot, that's where you have the laws of the menorah. But the laws of the Chanukah menorah are in Shabbos. when the Gemara talks about the wicks that are used for the Shabbos candles. So the Gemara, Chazal, the rabbis chose to put Chanukah after that discussion rather than in the discussion about the menorah itself. Why? What's the reason? What's the reason for that? Also, at the end of Hilchos Chanukah in the Rambam, and we know that the Rambam, generally, at the end of many of his halachic discussions, he says something hashkafic. He says something defining what the essence of this whole chapter, this whole section of my book is all about. And he writes at the end of Hilchos Chanukah, Godel HaShalom, that Shalom is a very special thing, very important thing. That's his emphasis at the end of Hilchos Chanukah. Why is that emphasis there? Okay. Next question. I think this is the last question. I think we've got it, the 8, is that every other Yom Tov has an all-consuming mitzvah. All week you go through during the day. Lulav, you can take Lulav, you can take Sukkah. It's all day. You have to be in the Sukkah, right? Pesach is matzah, right? Hanukkah, there's only one mitzvah, and it's when is it? It's like a half hour at night. Essentially, the mitzvah is the time shetikala regel min hashuk. You have time to light the candles ad shetikala regel min hashuk, until the last person gets home and the street is empty. There's nobody in the street. That's when you have to light it, right? In other words, it has to be lit at home, but you have to wait till everybody gets home to light the menorah. So what's this all about? I want to say, what is Hanukkah? What is Hanukkah really all about? Hanukkah is about, it was not physical destruction to kill us. That was Purim. Chanukah, as we know, was spiritual destruction. They wanted to destroy Torah Shebaal Peh. They wanted to destroy the teaching of Torah. And teaching of Torah, that's why we have this custom of Chanukah Geld, giving money to children, because they returned to the ability to learn Torah once again. We want to encourage them. How does Talmud Torah actually work, right? The Gemara says that Rabbi Yeshua ben Gamle will be remembered forever because he established a school system for the Jewish people. He established teachers in every town, right? Famous Gemara, right? And in fact, people say, sociologists point to the Talmud, the Jewish tradition, that the Jews were ahead of the times, right? An official system of public schooling, for example, in England, didn't happen until the 19th century, right? So we were ahead of our time with education, right? With passing on Torah from parents to children. Comes along Rav Hutner and he says the sociologists are making a big mistake. This idea of setting up schools that Rabbi Yeshua ben Gamle did was a b'diavad. It was not the ideal situation. The ideal situation was Beis Ha'av and Beis Ha'em, the bayit, the home. That's where Torah was taught to children. But because of the growing ignorance that parents were themselves not equipped to teach their children, the Rabbi Yeshua ben Gamle established a school system to augment, to give the children the message, the lessons of Torah. So a complicated, sophisticated educational system of schools was a b'diavad. It was a necessary thing because the original classic way of giving over Torah we were not able to do it. So, and they knew that. The Greeks knew that. They tried to destroy the home. They did not allow us. They made us build our homes that the doorways should be facing the doorways and the windows should be facing the windows, the Medrash says, of their neighbors. There was no privacy, right? They wanted to make the Rishus HaYachid into a Rishus HaRabim. The privacy of the house should be the street, right? To bring the street into the house, right? This is what they wanted to do, destroy the house, the bayit. And really, that is the miracle, that we were able to restore the sanctity of Beit Yisrael, that which Greece really, they understood this was the source of our strength, and they tried to destroy it. That's why that really answers all of these questions. that the emphasis is the bayit, and therefore the mitzvah is not in shul, where the miracle took place. Yes, but that was a public demonstration of the miracle. But what really happened here was not, it's not just about the oil, right? It's about a metaphor. Great metaphor for Torah, by the way, is oil, and it was about the attempt of Greece to destroy our whole tradition, which is based upon the sanctity of the house, the parents giving over to their children. And that's why the actual mitzvah has to be in the house. It has to be lit in the house. That's why the Rambam emphasizes it. And he says, Kol bayit v'bayit, every house and house. That's what the Rambam is saying. That's why in Al Anisim, we say, Bo vanecha, right? Yochanan Kohen Gadol, Ubanov, right? That the Kohen Gadol and his sons, even though it should say Avadav, right? Avadim, but twice an emphasis in Al Anisim on Banim, on children. And that's why we have this halacha in Hilchos Chanukah, that if you only have enough money for Shabbos candles or Yontif candles, Shabbos candles come first, because it's all about Shalom Bayis, right? That's why the Rambam ends his whole discussion of Hilchos Chanukah with Godel HaShalom, with the greatness of Shalom. And that's why the laws of Chanukah and the lighting the menorah are not in Menachos with the menorah, but they're in Shabbos, with the lighting of the Shabbos candles, and right after that, the lighting of the Chanukah candles, because it's about Shalom Bayit, it's about the return, the victory, the miracle of reestablishing the Jewish home again. And finally, the only time we have this little mitzvah of lighting the menorah, not during the day. Yes, we light it in the morning in shul without a bracha, but again, to celebrate the miracle, but that's not the halacha. The halacha is at night, that little window of time that we have at night to light the candles, right? Right? Nothing extraordinary the entire time. So why is that? Two things I would say. Number one, this is the emphasis on normalcy in Jewish life. We return to normal, the normal, healthy environment of a Jewish community, mothers, fathers, sons, daughters, living Torah, doing mitzvahs, learning, transmitting the Masorah, normalcy, not a special mitzvah like a lulav and an esrog, right, or a sukkah, right, or a matzah, right, something special, something unique. No, the greatness of Chanukah is normalcy, nothing unusual. We're back to normal, and therefore, why only that little half-hour period? Because Kadesh Yavo Regel Min Ashuk, that to the last Jew comes home. Then we have to wait till to the last Jew comes home to the bayit. That's the time for the mitzvah. And again, it's an emphasis on this whole idea that this is really the essence of Chanukah. So everyone should have a Chanukah Sameach, and Emir Hashem, the light of our menorah will bring light for all of Klal Yisrael, and will Emir Hashem get out of this matzav that we're in very soon in the schut of our mitzvahs ner Chanukah. All the best.